Many of the films, most of the films were ones which I thought were fabulous, very good, and if they didn't like them, that really made me very sad. But then there were the experimental avant-garde films that I wasn't so sure about sometimes myself, but it was so amazing that the kind of responses from people, you had to understand that those films had really gotten to them in one way or another because it upset them so much that they had to come out and verbalize how they felt. So it was a learning experience for me about the amount of emotion some of these avant-garde films generated. I would stand in the lobby, walking back and forth, actually, and hoping that they were enjoying and could hear the applause. And then when there was a film that offended some people, I sometimes felt that perhaps I could allay their unhappiness about it and talk to them about it. But that was not what I was good at, except to express my dismay that they didn't like it and hoped they would think about it after they left. I don't think they asked for their money back, but they may have said that they're not going to come anymore and they're not going to rejoin. That might have happened, and that certainly would disturb me. But sometimes I felt, well, too bad. It's your loss, not ours. They were being influenced and stimulated in a way that Hollywood movies generally didn't do, certainly not in those days. That everything was, I do remember some famous director who said, these movies that we are showing do not get the chicken into your mouth so you can chew it up and enjoy it. They make you work for your supper. Amos and I both worked in the same neighborhood, which was several blocks from the Museum of Modern Art, and I think I got out earlier than he did. I got out at 5 and he got out at 5:30, and I think the film started at 5. So I had to rush to get those tickets, and usually we missed the beginning of one of the programs. And we did think, why do we have to look at these films at 5 o'clock? Why aren't they shown at 8 o'clock at a normal time when people have had dinner and go to the movies? We didn't realize that the museum had very strict rules and regulations about when they could open and when they could close, and the staff couldn't work late. That would be overtime. There were terrible problems that, of course, we didn't know about, but we felt that it seemed unreasonable that that they weren't showing them in the evening. So we thought, well, maybe we could do that too. And then Amos began researching about films and realized not only that, but that there were many, many, many films that they were not showing that could have very well be shown. And that's how Cinema 16 started. Everything we did together, except Amos would choose the films. And I did publicity, and mostly publicity, I would say, trying to find some way to get an audience and to take care of all the office details, answer the phone. I didn't know how to type, so I didn't type letters. Amos typed the letters, but I took care of, the general office stuff. And actually, when we became a film society, then, of course, there were yearly membership fees that had to be paid and deposited in the bank, and the financial aspect of it, though we did have an accountant who came once a month and I guess took care of most of it. But I would say that mostly I was sort of like general manager and publicity agent for Amos. I'm the one who was from New York. Amos, of course, didn't get here till he was 17. So that I think I had a kind of a real notion of how valuable this kind of screenings were, and the good response that we got was very encouraging. And it was a time when there were lovely little coffee houses around, not like there are today with Starbucks being on every corner, but they would be individual, very, very personal kinds of little stores that had tea and coffee, and always there was a bulletin board with things going around the village, going around the town, that was so interesting, and Cinema 16 was part of that. And we'd always have a sign on the window or in the store of these particular little shops. And there was a new newspaper came on the scene. I don't remember what it was called, but it was before the Village Voice. And it was a newspaper about interesting, unusual cultural things that that Cinema 16 was part of, and really encouraged by it. Jonas was somebody who hung around all the time because he never had any money to pay for anything, and he also always looked very hungry to me. So not only did I let him in, but he was against avant-garde films in those days, so he would discuss how he didn't like those films, but he always wanted to be there and always wanted to be let in. And I would take him home and feed him lots of times because I know he didn't have any money. It certainly was a unique institution. It was the only place you could see foreign films in those days was on 42nd Street, which was that horrible, ugly street on Times Square that had mostly porno-type movie houses, but mixed in, there were one or two that we always frequented, but it was not the kind of place I think that we would go alone. I would always go with a bunch of friends or with Amos when I knew him, and it was that's the only place we could see these films. And Amos didn't start out by getting those kind of films, but he started out by having very wonderful, interesting shorts, which I remember I loved so much was Lamentation by Martha Graham, who was these were the days when modern dance was really coming alive, and lots of modern artists were coming up, and Cinema 16 fit right in with those kinds of things that were going on. So we were like part of the wonderful vibrations that were all around us. One of the first things I did, it was my idea. I don't think Amos had the nerve to do that, but I had the nerve to take a bunch of flyers and go stand in front of the Museum of Modern Art, and because I knew that the audience at the museum would be, a large part of those people would be interested in seeing other films just like the ones that were shown at the museum, or the ones in addition to the ones that were shown, because we did not show films like the museum. We just were more in the general vein of art and interesting shorts that were not commercial. So I had the courage to go stand in front of that door. I always remember that door, and hand them out to the people. And I was sure that somebody was going to come and arrest me, because nobody ever did that in those days. It was an all-consuming project for a number of years, and I did at times say to my husband, maybe this is too personal, but anyway, I would say, you have your baby, but I don't have mine, because I wanted to take time out of working to have a baby. And it just we kept putting it off and putting it off, because I was needed to work at the office. But just like it's true that I really had a good time and enjoyed it a lot, but did also want to have my baby. And I did do that after a while, and I was able to help out over the years and still be a mother. So I'm glad about that. In the later years of Cinema 16, as I got older, there were young women who were coming into the film scene. Karen Cooper was one of them, and she especially was a person who said, Marcia, how come your name doesn't appear on a lot of this material about Cinema 16? I know that you were very involved all the time. And I said, but of course I was involved, and Amos always wanted me to be involved and wanted me to have my name on it, but I was always the one who said, no, I think it looks better if it just has your name on it. And then all these several young women like that, filmmakers, even Maya, maybe, no, not Maya, because she was my generation, and we did not have our consciousness raised. And these young women said, no, you must always have your name expressed, and since then they are the ones who have used my name a lot of times. But I do want the world to know that never was there anything between us that where Amos felt that I should not be just as much and as part of what was going on as I was. So it was my own consciousness that was not raised, and I am grateful to those women who made me aware of it. I was like jack of all trades at Cinema 16, because we did everything together, and we worked, I remember, through the summers, because we had during the summer we would try to do our recruiting by sending out interesting brochures with the fall program coming up. But then, of course, we had to address all the envelopes. So we even had our friends. We'd have stuffing parties during the summer. A bunch of friends would sit around, and we'd stuff a few hundred envelopes, because that was our mailing list. Yeah, we had a mailing list on mimeograph cards. Ah, I remember that mailing list. But anyway, so we did this for like 5 or 6 years, and I remember saying to Amos, you know, Amos, this is your baby, Cinema 16. It's really your baby, and though I love it very much, I would like to have my baby. So we would talk about when would be a time when he could hire. We'd have enough money to hire a secretary and somebody to do the membership stuff, and then I could stay home and have a baby. So we made this plan, and I got pregnant, and as soon as that happened, the secretary quit, and the membership person had to go on leave, and so I had to work until practically the day of my son's birth. But it proves that you can't really make plans about having a baby. But I was happy to get my baby, and I think Amos was very happy to have a baby as well. So he had his baby, and I had mine, and we lived happily ever after.